I was finalizing a client proposal when she leaned into the doorway the way a supervisor does before delivering bad news. No greeting, just that line delivered as if she'd rehearsed it. "You have until next month to be the husband I need. I'm Robert Fletcher, 39, working in financial analysis in Boston." Tuesday, 7:42 p.m. The house smelled faintly like the garlic chicken I'd cooked. The spreadsheet on my screen still glowed with green check marks. And somehow in my own home, I was suddenly in a performance review. I didn't say anything at first. There's a difference. After 9 years, you learn to read not just the words, but the posture behind them. Arms crossed, chin tilted. The soft focus in her eyes you get when you've already decided the answer and you're pretending to ask a question. She dressed up for a book club, hair done like a first date. She held her phone palm down against her thigh like it might leak the truth if she loosened her grip. "What does that mean?" I asked. The tone you use when someone says they'll circle back, but they've already left the meeting. "It means I need to see changes. Consistency, presence, effort." Her voice had that consultant polish, the language that sounds measurable until you try to measure it. No examples, just a quarterly goal with no KPIs. She looked past me at the monitor, then at the pack-to-go container I'd set on the counter for her. She ignored both like they were old furniture we'd never agreed to buy. I waited. People fill silence with the thing they're trying not to say. She was ready for silence, too. That told me more than anything else. For months, I'd felt it in the edges of life where truth hides. Passwords changed under the banner of privacy. The new gym classes that conveniently overlapped dinner. Laughter from the hallway while she scrolled in the dark. Then the quick flip of the phone when I walked in. She'd shifted how she narrated us to other people. Not we, not my husband and I, but light jokes about how I live in spreadsheets and forget what romance looks like unless it's color-coded. Harmless on the surface, but humor is a delivery system for intent. I thought about the last time she reached for my hand first. I couldn't place it. I could list closing prices from 3 quarters back, but not the last Saturday that felt like two people pulling in the same direction. That realization didn't make me angry. It just made me honest. I asked for specifics. What would next month look like if I nailed it? She had bullet points, but they'd been rehearsed away from us. Plan surprises. Initiate more. Make me feel chosen. Be less rigid. Read the room. Be spontaneous, but also predictable where it counts. A list that cancels itself out if you try to follow it literally. She'd practiced it. I could hear the cadence of borrowed lines. It sounded like her friend Jessica, who narrates her life like a podcast sponsored by self-discovery. I pictured the group text reaction to the script. "Yes, Queen. Clarity is kindness." I nodded, just acknowledging that sound had happened in the room. She mistook the nod for surrender. She shifted her weight, satisfied with the delivery, and checked the time like an event had concluded. "I'm heading out." She grabbed the to-go container without looking at me and put it back in the fridge. When she closed the door, the magnets rattled, the dentist appointment reminder, our niece's birthday invite. Small proof that life still had dates attached to it. She was already halfway down the hall when she said, "This is a chance, Robert. Don't waste it." The door clicked. I stared at the spreadsheet for a long minute, not seeing numbers. The house hummed the way houses do when they're waiting to be told what they are, home or storage. The garlic in the pan had gone from pleasant to tired. I saved the proposal, closed the laptop, and slid the chair back slowly, like noise might wake something I wasn't ready to meet. Here's the thing. I don't advertise. I'm not allergic to change. I've just learned the cost of changing for the wrong buyer. I washed the pan, wiped the counter, and set the kitchen right because order is a kindness you can give yourself. Then I went back to my desk and opened a different set of tabs. Bank portal, 2-factor authentication, subscriptions, the boring spine of a life. I wasn't acting out of panic. Panic is loud. This was quiet. I confirmed what was joint and what wasn't. I looked at the emergency contacts on my health app and changed the primary from her to my brother. A small click that made a larger sound inside me. I checked the lease and date out of curiosity, not urgency. A furnished 1-bedroom downtown popped up in a side ad. The algorithm knows when you blink a certain way. I just noticed it and let it sit there like a suitcase by the door you haven't packed. On the counter beside my keyboard was the photo strip from a booth at Walden Pond the summer after we married. In the first frame, she's pulling my face toward hers. Eyes closed, absolute gravity. In the last frame, I'm looking at her instead of the camera. I slid the strip into the top drawer to put it somewhere that matched what it was. History, not instruction. At 9:10, my phone lit with a message from our friend group. Jessica had posted another carousel. Soft hats, candles, a caption about choosing yourself first. There she was mid-frame, my wife in a laugh that didn't reach the eyes I know. I turned the phone face down and listened to the refrigerator settle. I wondered if I'd missed a signal years back. Some early drift I could have corrected by turning the wheel sooner. The brain does that inventory in moments like this. What could I have fixed if I'd been better, faster, more romantic, less analytical? Then I remembered the feeling I'd had last month when she sent me a TikTok about partners who still date each other at 1 a.m. and then declined my brunch plans the next morning because she was recharging. The math never penciled out. You can't solve contradictions with flowers. I printed the proposal anyway, initialed the final page, slid it into my briefcase. Routine steadies a man. I poured the leftover garlic chicken into a Tupperware for my lunch tomorrow. I set the coffee to auto brew. Small things that prove you're awake in your own life. When she came back near midnight, keys soft against the door, she paused at the office threshold. I kept my eyes on the monitor, not to punish, but to decline the invitation to a second act of the same scene. She stood there long enough that I could hear perfume and something like gin. "Did you hear me earlier?" she asked, voice lighter now. "The way you talk to someone you think is on your team." "I heard you," I said. "That's all you have to say for now." Silence again, but this one belonged to me. She left a beat later. 2 footsteps. The bedroom door closed, then opened, then closed again like she was editing the moment and couldn't get the cut right. I shut down the computer and sat in the darkroom for a minute, listening to the house breathe. My mother used to say, "Clarity is a mercy, even when it hurts." In bed, on my side of the mattress we'd chosen together and started sleeping on separately, I scrolled apartments without saving anything. I read lease terms like they were poetry. Start date, deposit, key pickup. I changed one more setting before I slept. The lock screen on my phone. No shared photos, just a simple blue gradient. A small quiet reset. Morning would come as it always does. The proposal would go out. The coffee would drip. She'd wake up and expect revision notes on her ultimatum. Maybe a breakfast apology, a plan with bullet points, and a timeline. She didn't know that the only thing I was revising was my willingness to be reviewed. Respect isn't earned by deadlines. It's enforced by decisions. I slept better than I expected because something was decided. The next month had already arrived in me by the time the house went still. The next morning, she acted like our conversation had been inspirational rather than terminal. Coffee in her travel mug, blazer sharp, perfume that announced itself a half-second before she entered a room. "Let's make this a great week," she said like a CEO after layoffs. I watched her leave and realized the deadline was a new operating system. Everything would now be framed as data for her decision. By lunch, the calibration began. A text with a heart emoji and a link to an article about men who create romance without being asked. No question mark, just the implied assignment. I typed back, busy until 5, then put my phone face down and finished the evaluation model. At 3:12 p.m., another ping, a couples retreat ad, 2 nights of workshops with words like alignment and repair. There was a discount code. The message underneath said, "If you book by Friday, we get an early bird rate." She was shopping for solutions the way she shops for throw pillows. Aesthetics first, structure second. That evening, she came home dressed for a girls' dinner, a phrase that had recently expanded to include women I'd never heard of. She stood at the mirror fastening an earring and said, "I told them we're trying a new thing. Intentional spontaneity." I could hear the pride in the announcement like she'd already earned credit for changes I hadn't made yet. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means I want to see you step up without me scripting it." She smiled into the mirror. Surprise me. I didn't tell her surprises and deadlines are natural enemies. I just nodded and loaded the dishwasher. Over the next few days, the pressure took shape in small, deliberate moves. She scheduled a last-minute brunch on Saturday with Jessica and 2 others and forgot we'd planned to visit my mother. When I reminded her, she blinked like she was reading a caption on a photo that didn't match the image. "We can do your mom tomorrow," she said, grabbing her keys. "Today is about us learning how to be social again." Us, I noticed, didn't include me. I went alone to my mother's and fixed the loose cabinet door that had been irritating her. On the drive back, she texted a picture of her mimosa and wrote, "See, trying new things." It felt like a post for an audience that wasn't me. Her language with our friends shifted further. At a coworker's birthday, she told a story about me forgetting how to be present, complete with a theatrical demonstration of me checking my watch. People laugh the way polite people laugh when they want the moment to pass. I smiled and asked the birthday girl about her promotion. Steering the room isn't hard. It just requires ignoring the bait. Later in the car, she said, "You didn't defend yourself." I said, "I didn't need to." She stared out the window like I'd answered in another language. There were tests disguised as jokes. "What's the plan for tonight?" she'd ask when she already had one. "Let's be spontaneous," I'd say. "Cool. I'll see what the girls are doing." She'd watch my face for a flinch, for chase. I offered neither. Silence makes some people curious. It made her irritated. She started leaving clothes draped over the back of the couch after insisting for years on a neat living room. Rolled her eyes when I folded them. Once she left the front door unlocked when she went to the gym. When I mentioned it, she waved a hand. Stop catastrophizing. People who never lock doors call caution paranoia until the day they don't. I asked a few calm questions. The way you tap a wall to find a stud. Are you asking for counseling or an audience? Do you want change or a spectacle? She said I was being combative. I just needed to hear her say out loud what the script required. She floated above specifics like a drone collecting footage for a montage. Midweek, she found a new gear, public metrics. On Instagram, she posted a carousel of acts of love partners do. Then a poll. What makes you feel chosen? I recognized our kitchen counter in the background, my coffee mug, just out of frame. In the comments, her friends typed paragraphs about men who planned sunrise picnics and left notes in lunchboxes. One wrote, "If he wanted to, he would." I stood at the sink rinsing a pan and thought, if you wanted to, you'd notice what already is. There was no appropriate reply that wouldn't turn me into the villain of her thread. So, I put my phone down and wiped the counter. By Friday, she'd begun narrating my progress. At dinner, Thai takeout we ate over the coffee table, she said, "I'm seeing some effort." I hadn't done anything different except live my life, without commentary. She lifted a forkful of pad CEW and added, "But I need consistency." The irony of grading an outcome she invented wasn't lost on me. I nodded and asked how her day was. She said, "Productive," like we were coworkers summarizing a sprint. That night in bed, she lay scrolling, the blue glow painting distance between us. Jessica says male avoidance is a trauma response. She offered, casually weaponizing a sentence. "Is yours?" I said. I didn't speak in Jessica. She sighed, flipped on her side, and said, "Prove me wrong then." I stared at the ceiling and listened to the HVAC cycle. You can't outprove a moving target. You can only stop playing. Saturday morning, I left early to run. The air had that cold edge that wakes you up from the inside. When I came back, she was in the kitchen in a new workout set, leaning on the island with a brochure for the retreat. "There's one spot left this month," she said. I told them we might take it. I poured water, let the silence do its work. "We?" I asked finally. "Yes," she said too fast. "This is marriage, Robert." She used my name like a gavel. I took a sip and set the glass down. Marriage is what we do when no one is watching. Retreats are what we do when everyone is. She laughed without humor. "So that's a no?" "That's a pause," I said, "on the theater." She went to girls' dinner again that night, which now seemed to be a daily holiday. This time she left her phone face up on the counter while she searched for her keys. A text preview lit the screen. "Are you actually giving him a deadline?" She grabbed the phone, saw where my eyes had been, and lifted her chin. "It's just the group." "I figured," I said. We stood there in a stale moment. The house felt like two apartments sharing a wall. Sunday was the softest and worst, smiles that didn't land. A suggestion we reboot with a picnic at Boston Common. Then a late cancellation because I promised Jessica I'd help her plan a launch. The picnic groceries sat in the fridge, strawberries bleeding color into their box. I grilled chicken and packed my portion for Monday's lunch. Threw her portion in a labeled container. Old habits die politely. When she finally came home, she had the kind of energy you bring back from a pep rally. "The girls said you looked checked out at dinner," she announced, toeing off her heels. "They're worried." I remembered precisely how many minutes she'd spent at our table in conversation with me. "That's generous of them," I said. "Please thank the committee for their concern." She narrowed her eyes. "You think you're above feedback?" I think I'm done being scored by people who don't sit at this table. She opened her mouth, closed it, shook her head. Next month, she said softly like a spell. Don't forget the deadline. She walked around the house, wore perfume, posted stories. Monday came with a new tactic. Entitlement disguised as expectation. She sent me a list of little things that would make her feel seen. Flowers midweek. No screens after dinner. Planning a date without asking her to weigh in. Half the items were things I'd offered for years. The other half contradicted the first. The list wasn't for me. It was for the record. That evening, she asked if I wanted to join her and her friends for trivia night. I said no. I almost added, I don't audition in rooms that don't clap when I enter, but the line sounded like a movie quote, and I'm not a movie. She shrugged, annoyed at my refusal to give her an easy villain. We'll be late, she said as if we were going together. Have fun, I said. When the door closed, the silence felt like a friend who tells the truth without humiliation. Before bed, I asked the only direct question I'd been carrying since the ultimatum. Is there someone else? She didn't look offended. Offended would have been human. She looked inconvenienced. That's not the point. That's not a no, I said. And I don't need a yes. She rolled over and said, don't be dramatic. The word dramatic has a way of erasing whatever it's applied to. I turned off the lamp. The week ended how it began, with her treating marriage like a product launch. Announcements, metrics, optics. I made dinner, fixed a squeaky hinge, got 8 hours of sleep. I was watching. The pressure she thought would mold me into a better version did the opposite. It clarified my outline. There's a point where the weight stops shaping and starts breaking. I could feel it in the way my shoulders relaxed when I left the house, in the way my mind quieted when my phone was in another room. On Sunday night, she placed the retreat brochure on my pillow. Early bird rate ends at midnight, she said, lips pressed into a coach's smile. Your move. I tucked the brochure into the nightstand and said, noted. She wanted a show. I gave her a mirror. The silence didn't just bother her. It unnerved her. She had expected me to start chasing, questioning, maybe even groveling. That's how the script usually went. But the script was gone now. Burned the moment she gave me that deadline, and I didn't flinch. By the third day after that Sunday, her tone changed. No more clipped, smug remarks about me working on being the husband she needed. Now it was little comments tossed into the quiet, fishing for a reaction. You've barely spoken to me. You've been different lately. You're not even trying. I didn't give her much, just nods, the occasional hum, and a faint, almost polite smile when she walked past me. She started testing me in other ways, picking at small habits she'd once ignored, leaving her phone out on the counter with a half-hidden text notification from some name I didn't recognize. In the past, that would have baited me into asking questions. Now I just picked up my keys and went for a run. It got under her skin. I could see it in the way her eyes followed me when I moved around the house. She was used to holding the center of my attention, even if it was in the middle of a fight. Now she was orbiting me, waiting for any sign that I was still tethered. One night, she tried a softer approach. I was sitting on the couch reading when she sat down beside me. Remember when we used to watch movies together? She asked, voice lighter than it had been in weeks. I kept my eyes on the page. Yeah, I remember. She didn't expect that answer, flat, without invitation. She waited a beat, then leaned back, exhaling like she'd just taken a hit to the ribs. By the end of that week, she had shifted tactics again. This time, guilt. I feel like you're shutting me out, she said one morning over coffee. I looked at her evenly. Feels that way because I am. She blinked, stunned at the bluntness. In all our years together, I had never said something like that so plainly. I could see the gears turning in her head, whether to get angry or play the wounded card. She chose wounded. I just want us to work, she murmured. The change in me started to spill into the outside world. I was sleeping better, working later by choice, even picking up hobbies I'd put off for years. She noticed. You've been busy lately, she said one night. Her voice carrying that nervous edge people get when they realize the ground is shifting beneath them. Yeah, I said. Feels good. Her family began noticing too. Her sister called me to check in, clearly fishing for information. I kept it polite, but vague. We're fine, I said, which was true in the sense that a fire is fine once it's burned everything down. The more I stayed steady, the more she stumbled. She started overcompensating, making dinner, asking about my day, even touching my arm when she passed me in the kitchen. It all felt like a performance, and I treated it as such. Pleasant nods, polite thanks, and nothing more. The first real crack in her confidence showed when she tried to bring up the deadline again. "You know, you've got a few weeks left," she said over dinner, trying to sound in control. I set my fork down and met her eyes. "That deadline doesn't mean anything to me anymore." She froze like I had just spoken a language she didn't understand. From that night on, the power dynamic was different. She knew I was no longer waiting for her approval or fearing her decision. She was the one uncertain, the one trying to figure out where she stood. Her game wasn't just breaking down. It was over. She just hadn't admitted it yet. The deadline glowed on the calendar. I didn't say any of that out loud. I waited until the house settled into its nighttime noises before I moved. Not sneaking, just choosing my lane and staying in it. The retreat brochure still sat in the nightstand. I left it there and got up without turning on the bedroom light. The carpet remembered my steps. In the office, the monitor woke to a familiar blue. Numbers have never lied to me. People try. Accounts don't. I started with the small things that change bigger things. Two-factor logins, banking app, joint savings first. I transferred my half to the personal account I'd opened the year we bought this place. The one I used for bonuses and quiet projects I didn't advertise. I left a clean ledger. No overdraft traps. Boundaries aren't revenge. They're just correctly drawn lines. I paused long enough to listen for movement down the hall. Nothing. The house exhaled, and I kept going. Credit cards were next. I removed her as an authorized user on mine and declined the offers to upsell me on protection plans. I changed passwords on the streaming services and anything tied to my email. If you declare a trial period, you shouldn't expect full access to the premium features. I took screenshots where I needed a record, stored them in a folder labeled with the date. I pulled the fireproof box from the bottom desk drawer and set it on the mat. Birth certificate, passport, social security card, title for the car, copies of the lease, and insurance. I hadn't looked at some of these in years. They all still had my name. I added the photo strip from Walden Pond and closed the lid. Sentiment can come with you. It doesn't have to steer. I opened a browser and searched short-term furnished rentals downtown. The same one-bedroom from last week showed up, corner unit, light through tall windows, a desk by the wall. The photos were tasteful and generic in the way that makes transition easier. I read the lease terms twice, then filled out the application. Income, employer, references. I hit submit and felt the quiet click inside me that happens when you pick a path and stop shopping for exits. A confirmation email slid into my inbox with an automated, "We'll be in touch shortly." I'd already moved far enough to make timing a detail. On the way to the guest room, I stopped in the kitchen and set the coffee maker for 6:15. I rinsed my glass and wiped the counter. Order calms the mind. In the closet of the guest room, I pulled down the small roller bag I use for 2-day trips and started packing like a grown man who knows what he actually wears. 2 suits that work with any shirt, 3 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, gym clothes, black shoes, brown shoes. The gray quarter zip she hated because she said it made me look like every other finance guy in the city. I folded it neatly and zipped it in anyway. Toiletries, a spare phone charger, the fireproof box. The sound of the zipper made a clean line in the dark. I left my wedding band on the dresser. Gold doesn't know what month it is. I slept better in the guest room than I had in our bed in weeks. When the alarm buzzed, I was already awake. Shower, shave, suit. The navy one that says I'm here to do work and then leave on time. I made the coffee I'd set for myself, poured 1 cup, left the second carafe full on the warmer without a note. Courtesy isn't a contract. By instinct, I looked at the calendar on the fridge while I was packing my briefcase. Dentist reminder, niece's birthday party, a sticky note that said, "Early bird ends Sunday," with a heart drawn next to it. I peeled the sticky off and stuck it to the retreat brochure in the nightstand as I passed through, then kept walking. She found me in the kitchen a minute later, hair up, oversized sweatshirt, the kind of morning softness that used to belong to us. "Why are you dressed?" she asked, voice sleep-warm, suspicious of my competence. "It's Tuesday," I said, closing the briefcase. She scanned the roller bag by the door, the jacket on the chair, my shoes lined up neatly on the mat. "What's happening?" "Nothing dramatic," I said. "I moved to the guest room last night. I've moved some money to my account. I'm giving you the space you asked for, just without the theater. You wanted change without scripting it." I listened. Her eyes narrowed like I'd misread an instruction. You can't just. She stopped, recalculated. This feels hostile. I shook my head. It's clarity. You set a deadline for my value. I'm removing myself from the review process. I picked up the roller bag handle. I'll be staying elsewhere for a bit. Her face did a quick inventory. Anger, confusion, sales pitch. We can go to the retreat, she said as if this were a door she'd forgotten to open. We can fix this. We can stop pretending we're fixing it by inviting an audience, I said. If you want a counselor, we can discuss it. If you want a scoreboard, you don't need me to keep playing. She shifted tactics. So, you're just leaving? The word leaving had an accusation in it. I'm stepping out of the performance, I said. I'm not available for deadlines, auditions, or group notes. She was quiet for a long second. It was the most honest sound we'd shared in weeks. Where are you going? She finally asked, like the logistics might give her leverage. A place downtown, I said. Short term. She took a breath that looked like a choice. Is there someone else? I met her eyes. There is. He's a man I haven't been in a while. He requires a clean environment to work. I didn't wait for her reply. I set my cup in the sink, clicked the suitcase handle into place, and rolled it to the door. She followed, feet bare on tile. Say something real, she said, like she deserved a monologue. I turned the knob and gave her the only line I owed her. I'm becoming the man who doesn't need a deadline. The hallway felt cooler than the kitchen. Elevator, lobby, morning air that had a different temperature than the one in our house. I loaded the suitcase into the trunk and sat behind the wheel for a minute with the engine off. The office could wait an hour. The apartment manager had emailed back faster than expected, a short message about a viewing at 9, and a link to a background check I'd already completed. I drove to a coffee place near the building and parked under a tree that was beginning to let go of its leaves. Inside, I sent 2 emails. One to my brother, "You're now my emergency contact," and one to HR to update the same. I forwarded the apartment confirmation to my personal email and deleted the retreat brochure photo I'd taken, the one I'd kept as a reminder of what I wasn't doing. I paid cash for the coffee without thinking why. The building manager met me at the door with a folder and a practiced smile. He walked me through the unit, opened closets, pointed at outlets like we were touring a future that avoids speeches. The space was clean. The windows faced a street that was busy enough to make you feel less alone. The desk was real wood, not a promise. I signed the lease while he printed the parking pass. Back in the car, I texted her one sentence. I'll coordinate to pick up the rest of my things when you're out. She replied with 3 bubbles that appeared and disappeared. Then nothing. Silence traveled well across town. At the office, I sent the client proposal at 10 sharp and handled the first call like a man who'd slept and eaten and decided. When I hung up, I opened a document titled Next Month and deleted it. Then I opened another and typed Rent autopay, utilities, new P.O. box, attorney consult if needed. Not a battle plan, a maintenance schedule for a life that runs without permission slips. Around noon, she called. I let it ring out, then listened to the voicemail. Careful tone, a hint of logistics, a rinse of guilt. When I drove back to the new place that evening with the suitcase in the trunk and a grocery bag in the passenger seat, the light through the windows looked like a beginning and a continuation at the same time. I hung 2 shirts. I set the fireproof box on the top shelf. I placed my coffee mug on the counter and programmed the timer for 6:15. Same settings, different home. The silence here didn't measure me. It helped me. Respect isn't a prize you get for passing a test. It's the condition you create when you refuse to sit for one. The apartment felt more like mine by the second week than the house ever had in the last year. I didn't over-decorate, just kept it clean, functional, and light. The kind of space where I could think without having to manage someone else's moods. I hadn't blocked her number, but I treated it like junk mail. If I needed something from the old place, I'd text her a date and time, short and logistical. She tried to slip in little hooks. We should talk, or I miss us, but I didn't bite. She made one last push the following Friday. Said she wanted to meet somewhere neutral to talk. I agreed because I wanted clarity to be audible. She picked a cafe halfway between us. I arrived on time. She was already there, stirring her coffee like it held answers. She started with nostalgia, how we used to be, the trips we'd taken, the special little things that made us different from other couples. I let her finish. Then I said, "You remember giving me that deadline?" Her eyes flickered. "I was trying to get through to you." "No," I said. You were trying to keep me on a leash while you decided if I was worth keeping. That's not a marriage. That's a probation period. And I'm not interested in living under review. She went quiet, staring at the steam rising from her cup. I didn't think you'd take it like that. I didn't take it anyway, I said. I acted on it. And now I know where my respect starts and ends. She sighed, the kind of long, slow exhale that comes when you realize a script isn't landing. So that's it. That's it, I said. We can handle the separation paperwork quietly, or we can drag it out. I'm fine either way, but I'm not coming back to a house where respect is conditional. Her face hardened. You'll regret this. I smiled. No, I won't. We parted without a handshake, without any dramatic exit. I paid for my coffee, walked to my car, and drove back to my apartment without looking back. From then on, her messages came less often. The ones she did send were logistical, forwarding mail, confirming item pickups. The tone had no bite left in it. Whatever she'd been trying to prove in the beginning, she'd lost the taste for it. A month later, I heard from a mutual friend that she'd been seeing someone, but it wasn't going well. I didn't react. Why would I? Her choices weren't my weight to carry anymore. Life without her deadline felt lighter in ways I hadn't expected. I was making plans without having to factor in someone else's silent disapproval. I signed a lease extension on the apartment, set up a new P.O. box, and took a weekend trip with no one to clear it with. One afternoon, she sent one final message. I thought you'd fight for me. I didn't reply because the truth was simple. I had fought for myself. The irony stayed with me. She gave me a month to prove I was the husband she needed. By morning, I'd become the man who didn't need her at all. And that's the thing about respect. Once you realize it's not negotiable, you stop giving discounts. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.